What's up, everybody? It's the Tabletop Tyrant, and for the first time in a while, we're back with an army breakdown, and today is going to be Vampire Counts. So, I decided to motivate myself a little bit and change up the armies I've been playing. I've been finding myself get a bit stagnant. I've been playing a lot of Warriors of Chaos and Orcs and Goblins, and those two armies are armies I've played for the last 15 years. Oh my goodness. At this point, so I figure I would switch it up entirely, go from magic and go from combat and some magic to a magic inspired army and see what I can do. And if you're interested, on Sunday starting at 12 p.m. Central Standard, I'll be doing a 24-hour stream to paint what I have for that army, which I think is 1,000 points. So feel free to check that out. Here's a test scheme of what I've done so far, and yeah. Well, let's get into this army book breakdown. Boom and boom. PowerPoint proficient as always. So this army is unique in a sense. It's like a mix of Tomb Kings, but not so like Tomb Kings. It's like a very unique flavor I can appreciate for. Where Tomb Kings tends to have more constructs and stone type of creatures like Ushabti or the Necro-Sphinx. These guys tend to be more about like fleshy bits, big Vargolfs, the freaking Vargeis, Cryptors, Crypt Ghouls. And there's a few ways you can build your list and a few ways you can build up your core, your rare and special. And you have 3 different options when it comes to a general for your army, which would be the Necromancer, the Vampire Lord, or the Strigoi. So, yep, let's jump into that stuff going forward. Boom. So we have special rules: Cleaving Blow, Dark Vitality, Indomitable, Necromantic Undead, the Newly Dead, Wailing Dirge, Resurrecting the Fallen, Death of a General. So I'm going to gloss over these because if you guys want an in-depth thing, we'll get into that, on your time. Cleaving Blow is pretty much just a 6. Armor saves are negated. You can still take a invul and a regular ward save. Dark Vitality. They can march as normal unless they're joined by a model that doesn't allow them to. So with undead units, they typically can't march and advance in ways that normal armies do because they're held together by magic. This kind of negates that. Indomitable works the same way it does with the Tomb Kings. It'll be Indomitable and then some number, and then that number is something you take away from the result. So if you lose 2 wounds and you're Indomitable 2, you break even, nothing happens. Newly Dead. Now, I'm pretty sure only the zombies have this special rule, and what it allows you to do is bring the zombies back past their starting number. So that's good. You get the Wailing Dirge. It's a shooting attack. I believe, it takes place in the shooting phase, and the target is within 8 inches of the model, can have line of sight. You take your -2 to your leadership check. You take this leadership check, everything you roll over is wounds taken. So if your leadership 7 base, your modified leadership is now 5. If you roll a 10, you take 5 wounds. Boom. Resurrecting the Fallen. Now this is a really important one to kind of touch on when it comes to your undead. So when you do this, and I've caught a few Tomb Kings players messing it up in the past as well, you don't just bring on whatever models you want. There's a natural order that you do it. You recover wounds from your general, so you don't bring them back ever. And the next thing to come back or regenerate wounds is your champion of the unit, or any other type. So say you have a general and a standard bearer, you bring the standard bearer's wounds too. Then it goes to your champion, then next standard, then next musician, and then rank and file troops. And then on top of that, one thing I caught with the Ushabti unit was someone would bring them back and put 1 wound on each. You cannot do that. You have to build all the wounds up. So if it's a 3 wound piece, you have to have 3 wounds before you even bring back another model. So very big. And then Death of a General, very similar to Tomb Kings. When your general, who is kind of holding the army together with magic, is killed, you have pretty much minus, you have to take a leadership check, and also they lose their regeneration that they receive from Necromantic Undead. And what's going to end up happening is, at the end of the phase in which the general dies, you take a leadership check on every unit. This is like crumbling. For every number you roll over is a wound suffered. So if you're leadership 5 and you roll a 10, you lose 5 models. Indomitable still applies, I believe. And then on top of it too, you have to take this at every start of your turn phase. So it shows like kind of the army depreciating over time as your general's dead and the dead start falling apart. So let's move on to some other stuff. Now, the lore of Undeath is really nice. All these 3 spells were spells, I believe, throughout all the editions, if not just 8th. I remember them hardcore in 8th. Now, Van Hell's Dance Macabre is okay. Honestly, I don't really care for it. You can use it on 8 to 12 if you cast it on 8. You can pick a characteristic to add D3 to, whether your movement skill, weapon skill, or initiative, and it can go that way to a max of 10. And then if you roll, I believe, a 12 or higher, you can pick 2. It's like, it's good, but remember, you're sacrificing one of your spells to take this one, and I don't think it's worth it. Same with Hellish Vigor, especially since there's, I believe, a banner that you can take that will give you Hellish Vigor, and that's pretty much just messing with your movement. Now, you don't want to mess too much with your movement, because you got to think your army's pretty slow, and I like to keep my stuff within reaching distance of being able to support one another. And I think one thing as an undead player I try to do is I try to always hit flanks or set it up where like my spearmen are getting charged and I'm maximizing my output, and then also able to kind of take a flank or really screw the enemy over when it comes time to combat res. And that's something important to remember with the undead. Now, the best one in my opinion is Raised Dead. I like that you can just pop up any type of zombies on the tabletop and just kind of get them where you want them to be. You can really mess someone's charge up if you roll well. There's a magic item that allows you to roll it twice, so you can put a decent number of zombies down, or 2 units, so one behind the other, so if they overcharge, you know, there's that. They're not worth any victory points, and on top of it too, their profile is movement 4, weapon skill 2, strength and toughness 3, 1 wound, 1 initiative, attack 1, leadership 2. And then for anyone that doesn't know, it is a 25mm unit size. It's a 2d3 spell, so yeah, you roll 2 dice, you get, say you get 6 and a 5, that becomes a 3 and a 3, you get 6 zombies, you just pop up in the middle of the table. Moving on. Now, the weapons I wasn't really super duper like thrilled with. I think that they're expensive. I don't think that they're nearly as good as a lot of the other stuff, but I've been spoiled with the Ogre Blade. Frost Blade 60 points. It has Killing Blow, magical attacks, and then any unsaved wound makes it strike at initiative 1, and then freaking always strikes last, which is kind of like cool for the rest of the game, like your initiative 1 and strikes last for that round, but how practical is it? Most combats I've run into, like, you're either gonna beat the living tar out of something you hit, or the second round they're gonna bounce out of combat, or you're gonna bounce out of combat. It's not really worth the 60 points in my opinion. The Sword of Kings, not to be mistaken with the Slayer of Kings that Archaon wields, is 55 points. And again, +1 strength, AP 1, Killing Blow, magical attacks. And then the Killing Blow takes place on a 5 or 6 for this one, but hey, you know what? I'd rather take something with better strength and better AP, and you know, magical attacks is good, but you know, everything seems to get it for the most part nowadays. You got Blood Drinkers, so every time you do a wound, you recover a lost wound, so that's cool. I mean, it's a guaranteed way to bring your wounds back, which is nice, but again, 45 points, you know, 45 points, you could take Invul Save and a Spell Familiar with those points, and you know, I think that'd be better. Dreadlance, 40 points. Now this one is not worth 40 points. It's 40 points, it's +2 strength, AP 2, Armor Bane 1, magical attacks. But you only get this on the turn you charge because it's a lance and you have to be mounted. Now also you get to reroll your to hit, but who really cares about that when in the next round and you don't charge, you're going to be just using your hand weapon. Pretty lame. Past that, don't worry about it. So the armor, the Flayed Hubric, 35. It's heavy armor, can be worn by any wizard. That is really good, considering that wizards don't genuinely get armor. So you get a 5-up armor save, you get a 6-up ward save, and it doesn't even affect with your spells. You can throw that on a necromancer, throw them on a freaking bone dragon, gain all the freaking saves you want, just pocket it, and just have a really nasty... Can they take a bone? They can take something like that. I'm pretty sure it's a zombie dragon. Hey, we'll cover it later on. And then there's the Accursed Armor, which is 30 points, full plate, +1 toughness, -1 to your weapon skill and initiative, and infantry and cavalry can take that as an option. Personally, not worth it. Full plate's dope, but whatever. You don't need it, you know. You get the Von Karstein's ring. Now, I would be lying to you if I said that that wasn't thematic as heck, considering that the Vampire Wars are over in this time frame, and you know, they've lost. So pretty cool they put that in there. It's a single use only. On the 2-up you don't lose a wound, and it's only for vampires. And then you get the Crown of the Damned. Now this one personally is like my favorite. It's not good, but it's thematic, right? And you get 35 points. The wearer gets a 4-up against any wounds. Due to the wailing of the spirits trapped, you're also subject to stupidity. So I kind of like that. I like a little randomness in my fun game. Something I definitely check with my opponent before I go, like, are we having fun or are you trying to just beat the tar out of somebody? So if I'm having fun, I'll take it. Now, here we go. Banner of the Barrows. As always, Banner of the Barrows is freaking legit. It was in the last edition. It's in this edition. I'm pretty sure it was in 6th edition. And what is it? It's a 65-point upgrade that only a White Lord can take. It's a BSB. And then during combat phase, 3-ups are always successful, regardless of weapon skill. So if you roll a 3 to hit on skeletons and this dude's in the unit, they're in there. So I like it. It's pretty good. I like it. Probably throw it with your Graveguard, obviously, especially since they got like a cool, nifty little rule too. You get the Drakenhof banner. Your 5-up, your 6-up becomes a 5-up regen. It's cool. Whatever. Screaming banner, 45 points. Take a leadership check. Yeah, so during their leadership checks, they have to roll an additional d6 and discard the lowest result. Hey, you know what? It's not too bad. And then there's Hellish Vigor, which is the spell made manifest into a banner. So that makes the spell a little more useless. Vampire counts magic items, enchanted, and arcane items. So the Helmet Commandment, Hand of Dust, Cloak of Mist and Shadows. I never... The Spell Familiar, to me, is like probably the one I would go for out of all these. And again, condensing it a bit for time here. I'm not going to run my mouth about all of them. But I would almost go with the Spell Familiar, which gives you an additional spell but doesn't increase your wizard level. So if you're tight on points, for an extra 15, you get an extra spell, and you could stay like a level 2 vampire if you wanted. So Hand of Dust, 35 points. Yeah, not worth it. Let me see. Yeah, honestly, the rest of these are okay, but I would just go to the regular book and pull a arcane item or enchanted arcane item out of there. Moving on. Oh, Vampire Powers. Beguile, probably still one of the better ones. So they have to take a leadership check before hitting you. And if they fail that leadership check, they have to only hit you on 6s. So it's kind of like your beauty. You like you're sparkling like that dude from Twilight. And then honestly, Dark Acolyte is something I would put on there. They get the Invocation and the Hex special rule. So if you're not looking to run a Necromancer, take the Dark Acolyte for 30 points. Bust your wizard level up to 2 probably. And you're going to be laughing with a pretty decent vampire that's going to be able to just kind of take on the role of the Necromancer. Supernatural Horrors, 20 points. You gain Terror. And then 15, you can bring back Creatures of the Night, but that's just pretty much like dire wolves, bat swarms, like, who cares? And then Curse of the Revenant, you get an extra wound. So 50 points for an extra wound, not worth it to me, but if it's worth it to you, go for it. And then Flying Horror, it's in the name, you can fly 10 inches. Boom. Can't join a unit though. So Vampire counts mounts here. We got the Skeletal Steed, which is Movement 7, Weapon Skill 2, Strength 3, Initiative 2, and it has 1 attack. It's considered heavy cap, has first to charge, Necromantic Undead obviously, and Swift Stride. So what's first charge do? The first time you charge a unit with this model, the unit will count as disordered, so it won't claim any rank bonuses. It's good to have. But where you'll see the better part of it, which I think the Blood Knights are on, is the Nightmare Steed, where they have countercharge, and countercharge and first charge are both freaking dope when they're tied together. So you get countercharge, which means you roll a d3 when someone dedicates to charge you. Now, you both count as having charge, but where it helps for you is, say you have, I don't know, Blood Knights, and you give them lances, you're +2 strength, you're -2 AP. If you took that hero, he can use his lance if you decide to spend 45 points on that. And it allows you to get all those benefits, and then you both get to add, I think it's 3 or 4 to your initiative. I think it's 3, right? So you get to add 3 to your initiative. You're most likely going to come out on top, and then you're going to punish them with your spears. And then if it's your first charge, they're also disordered. So if they're charging you with the rank of infantry, and they think they're going to get your Blood Knights, you countercharge, and you say, nope, enjoy no rank bonuses, homies. And it's good. It's nice. Then maybe they bounce out. You've cast some zombies to appear 1 inch away from them, and you have fun. So that would be my thing. The Coven Throne, so this is big boy. It's 210 pounds, or 210 points, not 210 pounds. It's got 3 profiles attached. It's a heavy chariot. It has the Spirit Horde that can do movement 6, weapon skill 3, strength 3, initiative 1, and it has d6 attacks. The Coven Throne itself is strength, toughness, and has 5 wounds. And then there's some maidens on there, 2 of them to be precise. It's weapon skill 5, ballistic skills 3, strength 5, initiative 5, attacks 2, leadership 7, and they have hand weapons. Now again, they have first charge, which is going to take away rank bonuses. Ghoulish Glamour, which we'll cover in a second. Impact hits d6 plus 1, and with that being heavy chariots, I believe it's minus 1 or 2 AP. You guys can tell me in the comments. I didn't look it up right now. Necromantic Undead, and then like I said, it has a 6-up regen. Most of the things are going to have that with Necromantic Undead. And then Ghoulish Glamour is pretty much like Beguile. Anything that wants to direct an attack towards it, they got to take a leadership check. If they fail, they're only hitting you on 6s. And then there's also with a spell attached to it called the Scrying Pole. Its power level 2 is casting range itself, and it's an enchantment. And until your next turn, this model may reroll hit rolls of 1. Now, that's kind of cool. I like that it comes with it. You're paying 210 points. It's not that bad, you know. Abyssal Terror. We're going to be looking at Vampire and Master Necromancer. Can take 120 points. His weapon skill 4, strength 5, adds plus 1 to your toughness, 4 to your wounds, initiative 2, and 3 attacks. It's a monstrous creature, and it comes with Wicked Claws, Poisonous Tail, Scaly Skin. The special rules it comes with, again, close order. It flies 9 inches, large target. It's Necromantic Undead, stomps D3, Swift Stride, and Terror. Now, it has a poisonous tail, but you don't have to put any attacks towards it. And honestly, I don't really, like, unless you're trying to just get the drop. It gets strikes first and poisonous, but I don't know. Not worth it, in my opinion, to waste. I would put the attacks on the Wicked Claws and just a shred. Now, the Zombie Dragon is decent. It's got a decent profile. You can put a Master Necro on there and a Vampire. I would probably go for the Necromancer personally. And low-key, I would be lying to you if I didn't want to see who would come out on top when it comes to the Crocodile Dragon that the Tomb King's got. But it's 215 points, movement 6, weapon skill 4, strength 6, toughness plus 1, and wounds plus 5. It's initiative 2 and it has 5 attacks. But anyways, it's a behemoth, but where it doesn't matter is when it comes down to the equipments. It has the Wicked Claws, Pestilential Breath, and a 4-up armor save known as Draconic Scale. So you're getting a decent save out of it. And then on top of it, it's aside from all the special rules, it has Carrion Feeders, which enemies engaged in combat are minus 1 to their initiative. I think that's a good thing, including like if someone maybe with a really low initiative charges you, they're minus 1, so that charge is only going to give them a 2 bonus, which is pretty decent. Again, Wicked Claws are AP2, and then Pestilential Breath is a breath weapon, which I found it weird that the Terrorgeist didn't get like the Scream or anything this edition, but it's strength 2, AP3. That's pretty nasty if you think about it. Now the Mortis Engine, again, I believe it's the same kit as the Coven Throne, and it's 195 points, so a bit cheaper. Another chariot, again, that you can throw at your disposal, and it's a heavy chariot. Again, they have the 3 profiles, but they're pretty much crewed by the same stuff, so let's not dive into it. And the throne itself has the same characteristics as the other one. So the Banshees, you get 3 of them. Their weapon skill 3, strength 3, initiative 3, 1 attack, and leadership 5 with hand weapons. And they have a couple special rules, 2 of which I want to talk about, which is a Cursed Reliquary and Blasphemous Tome. So while within command range for the Cursed Reliquary, friendly units with the Necromantic Undead special rule gain a +1 modifier to movement initiative. So that's kind of cool. Now remember, command range is your leadership. So if you throw something on there, you're going to be using its leadership, and you're going to get some pretty good leadership out of it. And then Blasphemous Tome, all wizards apply 1 to their casting rolls, even the enemy. But on top of it, if they miscast, they have to roll twice on the miscast table and keep both the results. So up to you. I like the Accursed Reliquary and Blasphemous Tome. They seem okay, but I would probably take the Coven Throne before this. Honestly, I wouldn't take either one of them, but hey, you know what? Who am I? I just feel like there's other cool things. I like big monsters, and it's really just like a subjective thing versus like this is how you win. If you think you can finagle a Mortis Engine over a zombie dragon, 100% that's up to you as a player. And then the Terrorgeist. So the Terrorgeist, I was like a little kind of like upset about to see it go like downhill. So Terrorgeists were really terrifying in 8th edition. They had this nasty little scream. It just horrified. It was horrifying to go against. You had to really kill it. I played Mark of Khorne, Warriors of Chaos, and it was always like one of the first things I had to really worry about, like not having any ranged, right? Is getting into combat and then dealing with it squealing at you. But now it's not something I'd worry about. One, I wouldn't take a Strigoi this edition, and two, I wouldn't take a Terrorgeist over the Bone Dragon. It's 205 points. You get Filth Encrusted Talons, which are AP 1, Armor Bane 1, so on a 6 you're AP 2, but poisoned attacks, and then it has Rancid Maw, which is AP -2, Armor Bane 1, and then multiple wounds 2. Now, that's not saying if you like it, don't take it. I don't know. But for me, it's not going to be something I want. It's movement 6, weapon skill 3, strength 5, toughness +1, wounds +5, initiative 3, and 4 attacks. It is Indomitable 1. Infested is a keyword that I want to cover here in a second. It does also have Wailing Dirge, and it gets D6 stomps at fly 9. So Infested means pretty much when this model loses a last wound, every unit in base contact suffers D6 strength 2 hits with AP 1. And honestly, I was a bit surprised that they threw an AP on there, but it was for the better. It needed it, I think. So yeah, there's that. It's okay. You know, like I said, it's not going to be my cup of tea, but it might be yours, you know. Now let's get on to the units here. Now with this, I could talk all day and go through like profile by profile and get all crazy into it, right? So we understand how the breakdown works. I've kind of taken it upon myself to where I'll have the core, special, and rare all done up there. And if I talked about anything in the mount section, I won't cover it again. And things like Graveguard or Black Knights, where they're special but can be taken as core if you take a White King, I covered in core and I won't be touching on them in special. So if you're looking for that, check this out. So pretty much, you know, the unit breakdown, we already have an idea of what it is. If you don't, the Legacy PDF will be linked in the description below if you want to look through it on your own. But I want to get into the troops. So there's a couple core units you can take. Zombies, I would almost always take because they're cheap. They can somehow take a standard and musician. I don't know how, but no champion. And they can be brought back past their starting number. However, to note, it's a minimum size of 20 and can only go to 40. So that means even if you're summoning just crazy amounts of zombies every turn, you can't go past 40. The skeleton to me is the MVP. Not too expensive, not too crazy. You're looking at movement 4, weapon skill 2, strength 3, toughness 3, and then like I said, you can have 1 attack but 2 on the champ. I would give them spears for an extra point, and then I would take a full command just to eat up points. You get close order Horde, which I believe allows you an additional rank. So, because it's regular infantry, I believe they're allotted 2 ranks when it comes to combat res. But with Horde, I believe it gives you 3. And then they have a 6-up regen, which is pretty decent. And then, you know, the armor is abysmal. They have a shield, so I mean, I guess a 6-up save. But yeah, so definitely a unit you want to go like maybe 7 wide with, or maybe 8 if you want to go daring. And then have like a unit of maybe 30 or 40. And then also, you want to make sure that you eat the charge so you get that extra rank. Some people forget, if you charge with spears, you don't get that extra rank of attacks, and then it makes that extra point worthless. Again, with zombies, you get what you pay for. They're garbage, but hey, they're cheap, you know, and they're close order still. Necromantic, Undead, and then Newly Dead, which is that rule we talked about where you can bring them up past their starting value. And then you get the Crypt Ghouls. Now, the Crypt Ghouls are expensive. You know, they're 9 points per model compared to the 5 points for skeletons and 3 points for zombies. But you get some decent stuff. You don't get any command element, though, so if it comes down to having a musician and someone took one, you don't even get the option to take one. And they are quick little bastards, I'll tell you. They get moved through cover. They have open order and poisoned attacks, and then reserve move and skirmishers. So they're meant to kind of tie in and get in there pretty quick, but they are nothing to mess with when you look at toughness 4 and weapon skill 3. Up to you. They do chew up core points faster. I find for me, take the minimum of core possible and fill up as much as you can with it, you know. So like, if you want to save a couple bucks, take you know, a White King and include Graveguard. Maybe take Crypt Ghouls as a second thing to fill it up. If you want to just spam a bunch of units, take a poop ton of zombies and skeleton warriors and fill up the very minimum you need for that core to reach its legality. Bat swarms I almost won't ever take. I don't think they're worth it. You know, they're core on top of it, and I don't want to waste my core points on something like that where it's 39 points and it's a swarm. I just don't see the validity in it, especially when there's fell bats and they might be a little bit more universally tied in. Again, if you got them, use them, chew up the points for them, but I don't have them and I have no effort to go out there and buy them. Direwolves are fast, and they're one of the only fast things in this army. They have a special called Slathering Charge, which gives them +1 strength in the turn in which they charge, and then they have the regen, and again they have Swift Stride and Vanguard. Honestly, not worth it to me. I don't want anything kind of going up too far ahead of the army. If they have any type of war machines with bases going up templates, they're almost not that big a deal, and I'm not looking to kind of tie anything in right away just to get my butt kicked and lose it. I can spend those 8 points elsewhere, you know, and 40 points can go a long way in this army. So when you're like, oh, it's just 40, this isn't the Warriors of Chaos where you're having heavy point stuff. This is, you know, that's some zombies right there, you know what I mean? And then if you take a white, you get access to Graveguard. The Graveguard are different. A lot of people last edition built them with great weapons because they could do some finagling with the corpse cart and get them always strikes first, which kind of balanced out always strikes last. They struck an initiative with +2 strength. Nowadays, they have a special rule called Implacable Defense. If you take shields, you can choose to not give ground. So you can stay locked in the combat, which is, it has its own merits, and I would almost say that's worth it. However, if you're the winner or loser and you outnumber the unit or you're outnumbered double, this rule cannot be used. But, I mean, honestly, I think that's a really decent rule. The Graveguard are Weapon Skill 3, Strength 4, Toughness 4, and at Leadership 7, and they're 10 points, 11 points a model at a unit size of 10 or higher. Like I said, you can take a full command at 6 points per pop, 50 points on the standard, and then a champion can take 25 points of magic items. I don't know. I would almost say take hand weapon shield, keep them cheap, take Implacable Defense. Black Knights. Now, I am really growing to love cavalry and lances in this edition. And Black Knights are 24 points of pop, weapon skill 3, strength and toughness 4, leadership 6. And then they have the option for lances, which I would always suggest to buy for +2 points. And then, you know, their command 6 points of pop, same gimmick. They have Cleaving Blow, though. Both Black Knights and Graveguard, and Cleaving Blow pretty much means 6s. You avoid all armor saves, but can still take regen and ward saves. So good, but not like you're going to break the game good, right? Now moving on, Graveguard and Black Knights we covered in core with Cryptors. These are the big 40mm ghouls. Their movement 6, weapon skill 3, strength 4, toughness 5, wounds 3, initiative 2, attacks 2/3. Leadership 5 and 46 points. Now, what do I mean by /3? That means if you pay for a champion, you get 3 attacks. They get Indomitable 1, move through cover, Necromantic Undead. So, again, in a stomp. So, Indomitable's nice because they are -1 to their crumble or breaking. And the move through cover is really good with monstrous infantry. And then on top of it, they have poison attack at 1 AP for their filth encrusted claws. Fell bats, they're monstrous infantry, 15 points apiece at a unit of 3 up. Again, if you have the models, use them, like enjoy them, but I wouldn't go out and personally buy these. They're just not worth it to me. They have 6 up regen, they're Swift Stride, and they fly 10, so they're quick. But I don't want quick when I do Undead. I want to be able to keep my stuff aligned and start working my angles to get flanks and set up rear charges and casting additional zombies on the table. Now the Corpse Cart is a heavy chariot this edition, and it's looking pretty good. Again, you can still upgrade it to the Balefire Brazier for 10 points in the Warp to Tinnibilation, which I'm pretty sure I just freaking butchered. And it's also a wizard level 1, so on it has access to the lore of necromancy, which is pretty freaking sweet. Now, the Balefire Brazier adds 1 to the casting value of the spells to enemy wizards, so if they need an 8 to cast, they now need a 9. And the range for that's within 15 inches. I don't know if I said that. And then Warp Tintibilation is a 15 inch, and then roll a d6 when casting Invocation in the Heck. On a 4-up, recover an additional wound. It's like, do you need it? Yes, it's cool. It's that extra wound. It can make or break something. But I would almost take the Balefire Brazier and just screw with other people's wizards, you know? Depending on who you're playing, you know? That's what I would say. Spirit Hosts. Now, I like these models. I built them quite a bit. You know, you can't go wrong with them. They're on a 40 mil base. They're movement 6, weapon skill 3, strength and toughness 3. The only hard thing now is that ethereal doesn't mean as much as it did in the last edition, like back in the 8th edition, because everything seems to have magical attacks or the ability to have units that take magical attacks. And, you know, they're just not as overpowered, which is great. They're more fun to take, in my opinion, and go against. But they do have some other special rules, like Bound Spirits. So they gained this rule called the Undisciplined rule. So this unit can use the General's Inspiring Presence and the Hold Your Ground rule of the Battle Standard Bearer, which is nice. Karn Wraiths and Tomb Banshees. These two were really interesting. For some reason, they were by the Generals, which I mistook them for Generals for a minute, and maybe they are, but... Karn Wraiths, movement 6, weapon skill 4, strength, toughness, wounds 3. You know, nothing too special. Leadership 6, 50 points. It has Spectral Scythe, so it's a magical attack. It's D3 wounds, no armor saves allowed, but invul and regen are still good to go. And then the Banshee, similar. It's movement 6, weapon skill, strength, toughness 3, initiative 3, leadership 6 at 90 points apiece, and it has ethereal, indomitable 1. Magical attacks, Wailing Dirge, so it has that little shooting attack that you can take from the special rules. And then, if you are running a Strigoi Ghoul King, you can take a Terrorgeist in special, which we covered in mounts. And then you also get Vargeist, and those are the Vampire 40s, the alternative kit for the ghouls. Those guys are the ones with wings. And you know what? They're okay. They're weapon skill 4, strength 5, toughness 4, 3 wounds, and leadership 7, 3 attack space, 4 on the champ, which is pretty decent, but there's 61 points a pop. And again, points means a lot in this game. You know, the things I think are pretty decent are their Fly 9. They have Frenzy, so they're going to be getting an extra attack on the charge, but they also have the Declare a Charge, which makes it kind of hard to finagle them in the position to flank or hit a rear. You're going to probably end up hitting someone's front arc most of the time because they have to declare that charge. And then again, Skirmish, and then Regen 6 up. So nothing too crazy. They also have Armor Bane, so on top of all his attacks, on 6 is your AP 1. And I believe, yeah, your plus AP 1, so they're AP 3 with the Wicked Claws. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. You can rip up some heavy cav, you can rip up some monsters with it. I think because they come in the Start Collecting box for the Soulblight Gravelords, I would get them, but I have got that box, and I've ran into this problem where I'm not going to take a Strigoi Ghoul King, and it's hard to cram the points for the Blood Knights, which I think are better, and the Vargeist. So, know that going into it. So rare, we covered the Vargeist in special. Black Coach. Now the Black Coach is iconic to me. I've been playing around with it a little bit in Total War Warhammer, trying to figure out what I like about it in the game, because I'm like into it now for the vampire counts. It's strength 5, toughness 6, 4 wounds at 205 points. You get a Wraith with that Scythe, the same one we talked about, the Karn Wraith. And it has, it's being propelled by 2 Nightmares, which are movement 8. So it has an 8-inch movement. Those Nightmares are also strength 4. But to top it off too, the coach itself is strength 5, toughness 6, and I believe is a heavy chariot. So those impact hits, D6 plus 2, are still going to be at AP 2. And one thing I thought was really interesting is it has a special rule called Spectral Coach. And it's kind of like you can toggle on and off incorporeal. And in the command phase, if you do so, you lose the impact hits D6 plus 2, but you gain ethereal and fly 10. It's kind of nice if you need to get it from one point to the other and kind of go over units. Terrorgeist we covered in mounts. Vargulf. That's like the individual Vargeist. It's bigger, I guess, and it's on a 50 mil, but it's movement 8, weapon skill 5, strength 5, toughness 5, wounds 4, attacks 4, leadership 4, and 140 points. It has Bestial Fury, which enemy models cannot claim bonuses for rear or flank. Counter Charge, which makes it good. Close Order, which gives it that extra 1 in combat res. It's flammable, has Frenzy, and again, Indomitable, Necromantic Undead. All the same rules that you get when you're undead. Now this one is a little bit more manageable. I would see it as like something, again, with... And knowing from playing a lot of Khorne, with Frenzy, you're going to have it a bit harder trying to position to hit the flanks. I mean, the way I found it with Khorne is I tend to end up making my charge, hitting the unit. Maybe I'll end up being engaged, or I'll wipe the unit, or I'll chase it down. And then you have that chance to kind of reposition, but by that point your enemy has enough time to get ready for you to adjust their plans to deal with it. So it's really hard with that frenzy to make like strategic hits with them, unless you position it early in the beginning on your table and you can kind of understand your opponent's move. Blood Knights. Now this is my people right here. One, the new kits look fantastic. They're easy to freaking build too on top of it. And on top of it, they rank up and file perfectly fine, as you'll see probably Sunday. They are 39 points apiece at weapon skill 5, strength 4, toughness 4, initiative 4, attacks 2, 3 on the champ, and wounds 1. Now, the Nightmare Steed, they have a few upgrades you can take. The Blood Knights, right? You can take a command for 7 points apiece. They can be given full plates, 5 points apiece. Drilled for 3. The champ can actually take Vampiric Powers and magic items. And then they have a slew of special rules. Accursed Weapons, which is a magical attack, and they gain an additional AP. So put that up with their lances and your AP freaking 3. They have Martial Prowess, which means every single one of them can and must issue and accept challenges. And then on top of it, they have the rest of the other stuff. They're Indomitable, First Charge, Counter Charge, Dark Vitality, so on and so forth. Now moving on, we got the Hex Race, right? Now the Hex Race are interesting because they have the Spectral Steed and they have the Hex Race itself. And they are pretty much ghosts riding ghosts. And where they make up for everything and where they are 31 points isn't the fact that they're ethereal, but they have a special rule called Spectral Reapers. They can fly over a unit in the movement phase, and in doing so, for every model they flew over suffers a strength 4 hit with no AP. No armor saves can be allowed, but regen and ward saves are good to go. And then, like I said, this takes place in the move phase as you're moving over the unit, right? Now, one thing I do like is their cav is 8 inches, and the Hex Race, or they're just basic, weapon skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3. They definitely, that rule is where you get them on. You just get flying over units, messing with people, being that kind of guy. And I would be that kind of guy because they're cool. I wouldn't take like tons of them, but you know, they're in rare, so it's hard to kind of have your cake and eat it too, because there's all the good options seem to be in rare, in my opinion. My favorite options, I should put it. Now, moving on, we got Lords and Heroes. Now, one thing I don't want to put too much stock in, I'm just going to kind of talk about what they do. Personally, for me, I like vampires, I like necromancers. For you, you might like the Strigoi Ghoul King. You might not like vampires and just want to run necromancers. There's a ton of different options. Now, these are the ones that can be a general, because your general has to have the option of being a spellcaster. So you can't take a white king or lord as a general. You can't do any of that. And pretty much with the vampire counts, with the vampires, you can take their weapon skill 7. Absolutely fantastic. Strength 5, toughness 5 on the big one, toughness 4 on the little one, and weapon skill 6. They have a lot of other stuff like regen 5 up, but you can put them in some heavy armor, put them with the freaking talisman of preservation. They have a 5 up armor save, 5 up regen, 5 up ward. So they have a little bit more survivability in my opinion, and you can buff up them up with the Vampiric Powers to give them the invocation, the hack, and all that stuff, which can replace a necromancer. Now, they can go up to a wizard level 2, but with a spell familiar, they can act like they can take that 3rd spell, and I would almost always trace it in for Raid's Den. The necromancers are interesting. I just don't see as much validity with them, since you can take like 3 corpse cards per 1,000 points, and that's freaking where it's at. Again, they get invocation and the hack, which is also a vampiric power. And then finally, you get the Strigoi Ghoul King. They have a special rule called the Hunger. If you cause a wound, it can gain a wound back. However, you pursue 2d6 along with the unit it joins. I'm just not for it. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't like the look of it. It gets hatred all enemies, which is really nice. You reroll all your failed to hits in the first round of combat. But it's just not my style, and if it's yours, freaking right on. One thing I forgot to cover is like the White Kings and stuff. They're really good. I would almost use the White King as the BSB, take the Banner of Barrows, throw them in a Graveguard, have them always hitting on 3s with their cleaving blow, and just try to like maximize it there. So there we go. Now, final thoughts here on the vampire counts. Now, I think the vampire counts are a freaking solid and sweet army. One that I feel like it should have gotten put in the book as a functioning army instead of a PDF. But I'm not going to complain because the rules are free, right? And plus, who cares about my complaints? So for me, I would almost focus on min-maxing your core. And again, this part's going to be for people that just want to know what I think they should do or how to save money, right? If money is a factor, take ghouls for core because they eat up your core. If financially you're good and this is your army that you're going to just go ham on, I would almost take a bunch of zombies that you could raise with, that you can raise dead with, and I would take a ton of skeletons and just keep it really cheap and just put a ton of stuff on the table that you can tie people down with while you finagle your special and rare choices to get in there and hit the flank. I think with vampire counts, it's important that Magic kind of hit a little bit of a dip this edition. It's not like you're not going to be erasing armies with your Magic phase, but where it does make up for itself is monsters, chariots, cavalry tend to be really prominent and good in this edition. I would definitely take the Black Knights as a special and take Graveguard as core if you're looking to save those points in core again. Because the Black Knights get those lances, AP 2, that's really good. First charge, get rid of their rank bonuses. When it comes to rare Blood Knights, I like the counter charge, I like the first charge. It's really worth it. Then the Vargolf on top of it. Whenever I see counter charge, I try to think about how I can incorporate it somewhat in my list. And especially with Frenzy, there's going to be a chance where you take that Vargolf and you whiff a charge, and then someone's going to want to charge you, and you, boom, hit them with that counter charge and just rip them to pieces. Really good stuff. Like I said, the vampire counts as an army you got to focus and have a plan with. And I wouldn't say it's not beginner friendly, but I would say it definitely requires a better idea of placement, magic, and understanding how the game works before you dive into it. So I hope that this was informative for you. I hope that you enjoy it. I figure my new schedule Friday, I'll be finishing up the army breakdown so they're done, and then at the end we're going to go over a oopsie review where I cover all my mistakes that I did and kind of tie up the loose ends here. Next week will be Warriors of Chaos. Following that will be Tomb Kings. Tune in, and I hope you all enjoy this, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday when I do this 24-hour challenge of painting a bunch of vampire counts. So, peace out, homies.